Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Packer Universe podcast. We're a Green Bay Packers fan podcast that brings you topical yet relevant Packers news along with our most humble subjective opinions. This is episode 283, being recorded on August 20th, 2024. The Packers just played this last Sunday night against the Denver Broncos in preseason game number 2. We're wrapping up the end of kind of week 3. Looking forward to another preseason game this weekend, predicated by a joint practice with the Baltimore Ravens. I'm your host, Tay, and joining me in studio tonight is our one and only
Ren. What up, Tay? Good to be in studio. Happy birthday week to us.
Yes.
Yes. We are in the final training camp week. And shoot, Tay, we're on a Tuesday today. And a week from today is cut down day, Tay. So, I mean, we're a week away. This thing's over. I mean, we're just, just 10 to 17. I don't know. Do the bad math for my small brain on the start of the season on a Friday. So, yeah, it'd be 2 weeks from Friday. So, crazy, man. It's around the corner. We're here. It was and has been a tough few days since Friday in Denver. Before we get into any of that, anything you'd like to talk about up front here, Tay?
No. You mentioned that I have a birthday Friday. It'll be this Friday for all the Packer Universe peeps. Yours is on Sunday, so
correct.
Yeah, feel free to hit Ren up for sure on Sunday on the Twitter or anything else you can to wish him a happy 50s something. Oh no, that's
not yet. I got a few more years in my 40s, Tay. So,
but
we'll make the best of those first.
Well, and my family knows I'm a huge Packers fan, so I was gifted this year tons of Packer stuff.
You got some cool,
some vintage,
older,
some new though.
Vintage memorabilia.
I'll show you my shirt here. I got this too.
All right, nice. I didn't even notice that one. Beautiful
Packers
real
owner
nice
shirt. And then I also got a old school pennant that I will show maybe the universe later.
Yeah, it's got the single bar pennant. Yep. Old school, 60s style.
Got some tumblers from the 60s. Got an old program.
With also the single bar face mask. Yeah.
And a
1961 Packers Giants program, too.
Yes.
That was a pretty good get.
That was pretty cool. Some old school matches, some other little things here. But then thrown in the lot was a really bad dancing Packer doll, basically, and it's Chucky level. It's
terrifying. I said you, Tay, throwback to Seinfeld mid 90s.
Yeah.
Jerry's staying in Kramer's apartment. He's like, Mr. Marbles, is that you?
It's
Mr. Marbles level. It is a 10 out of 10 on the creeptastic level because as you mentioned, any direction in the room you're looking at that thing, it's looking at you. It's terrifying. I think maybe you'll have to tweet that out. And maybe do a little video of him singing the Monday Night Football song.
Because that's what it's programmed to do. It's programmed to play the Monday Night Football song really loud.
Hank Williams Jr.
It's so loud it's distorted and you can't even make it out. But the mechanics are gone except for the mouth. Only the mouth moves, and it probably adds to the creepy factor. But I got that. I don't know what I'm doing with that, Ren. Maybe we'll put a poll up sometime. What should I do with this thing? Everything's on the table.
I don't know.
Torch in the backyard.
I've got one old M80 left that I don't know. Mr. Marbles here. He's got, I don't know. Maybe he's got something coming to him because it's downright. It's terrifying.
So anyway, I just had to share that stuff with the Packer Universe. I hope your family knows that all of you love the Packers just as much, and maybe they give you these type of gifts.
I'm not kind of the merch guy quite like you are. I do have a box of the Ice Bowl program. I do have some cool stuff I showed you like that. We've got the old on loan Packers helmet wall hanging here. I've got some cool things. I have this really cool piece that my grandfather was given by another businessman. It was a banner from Super Bowl II in Miami. I'd love to get this thing authenticated. There can't be many left in the world because it's just a piece of paper, essentially. That's pretty cool. So I've got a couple unique pieces that way from the 60s, but not quite some of the cool kitschy stuff that you have. You got a lot of kitsch, Tay, with the Packer stuff. It's pretty awesome.
I don't know if I should slow my roll on it because, a lot of few choice pieces maybe, is what I should do.
That's why I got you a little background added to your video podcast today. I thought that was a good kitschy piece to add to the background.
Ren got me a Wheaties box, sealed from Super Bowl era, 1996 probably, right?
Yeah, Super Bowl 31 Wheaties box, Tay. If you get hungry, you're ever just stuck in a snowstorm and you just can't find something to eat, you get that emergency stash in 1996 Wheaties Super Bowl champ Green Bay Packer box to dig into.
Yeah. Well, and I will also receive, I left this out, a 6-pack of Miller Lite beer from 1996.
Yes. That one might have to get up on the background
that
as well.
Pretty cool to see.
And I'm sure if the Packers win the Super Bowl this year, maybe you and I shotgun one of those apiece. And does it taste the worst of all time?
Apparently, I've heard that there are YouTubers out there that do find old beers and they crack them open and drink them. And sometimes they're pretty nasty with solidification happening. So I am very scared. So I'm not making any promises with the Packers.
I don't know. I think we're right now on a recording and it's there.
It's locked.
It's there
locked
forever, Tay. I think if the Packers win the Super Bowl here this year and it's stayed on pace with each of these quarterbacks, it's right on schedule. We got to drink one of those beers.
Fine. I'm doing it.
It's done.
I'm doing it.
It's happening.
Another quick anecdote, and this will transition into our topic here. I got a gift from my daughter, and my brother got a gift from his son to go see a Metallica concert in Minneapolis. And we went on Friday. So as I'm driving or riding, and I'm updating myself on the Bears, the Denver Broncos joint practice with the Packers. I'll fast forward a little bit. Concert was great. Metallica was, definitely a cool show to see.
You got that long hair right now, though.
I do.
Was the headbanging?
Oh yeah,
happening?
Yes, it was
beautiful.
But I tweeted this out because we were way up in the nosebleeds. But fortunately, we got some random stadium guy walks around with the free upgraded tickets. So we got actually upgraded down to the 8th row from the floor.
Hello there.
That's
pretty awesome, man.
Meanwhile, I'm up top and I'm like looking around and everything's purple, everything's skull, everything's boat.
What was it?
Boats.
US Bank?
It was US Bank Stadium.
I'm sorry.
I was there. I was in enemy territory. I was a pilgrim in an unholy land.
Well, I mean, if you're there watching the Packers whip the Vikings' ass, I mean, what does it matter?
There was
that's a good time.
A couple
to be
Packers jerseys there, but I'm looking around. I don't see anything. They have a ring of honor. They have a ring of honor like we do.
Yeah, it probably ended in the 70s because they were good.
Yeah,
and then,
I see Tarkenton's name on
right.
there. I don't recognize.
I mean,
any other
maybe
names.
I guess Chris Carter's on there, and there's
Culpepper maybe, but
Randy Moss maybe.
What are those? I don't know enough about the Vikings to know if those are like retired or Hall of Fame members or what. Our ring of honor is like retired numbers.
Well, no, there's a lot of other folks.
And then there's a couple other top notch people front office people.
Right, but you've got like Ron Wolf up there and Ted Thompson up there, and they're in the ring. They're obviously. I don't know that Ron is a Hall of Fame member. Obviously, Ted is not at this point, but there's a number of guys that are ring of honor, so to speak.
So that's all they've got. And I
Chris
noticed
Dolman, I mean, that was a heck of a guy in the 90s. Remember him and Favre had some pretty big battles. But I mean, there's not a lot of standouts over the last, 35 years. There's definitely some from Randy to Dolman and Chris Carter, but
I made note that I didn't see any championship banners in sight.
You didn't?
0.
Really?
0.
I'm shocked.
None.
Yeah.
So it was pretty, pretty drab there. There's no decorations.
Yeah,
because
it's gonna be a minute too, because nobody wished the JJ thing on them, which is unfortunate. But they're kind of in a rebuild. I don't know why they just paid $10 million for one season of Stephon Gilmore. The guy's washed anyway. Like the Packers after play the Cowboys in the playoffs last year. They're like, please, yes, sign Stephon Gilmore.
But see, the Vikings are
totally washed.
The Vikings are one of those teams that will pay these people. There's always some team that will pay somebody, right?
You know, because of how they've set up and traded to get where they needed to be the last couple of years, they have 3 picks next year, Tay. I think they have 3 draft picks in 2025.
It kind of sounds like the Bears this year with like 5 or whatever it was.
So the Vikes are in a rebuild, and they can't build real fast.
Nope.
Given the lack of capital in 2025. So I don't know what they're doing paying a age Stephon Gilmore $10 million. That's save the cap money for something else.
So while I was driving out there, I was watching the Twitter feed to get some intel on this joint practice between the Broncos and the Packers, and I was just like, my mouth is open, like, what is happening? Like they look like arse.
I mean, it wasn't great, Tay. It was certainly a lot better than, what they did the following 2 days later on Sunday night in Denver. I know, obviously, they're going to point to altitude. It was in the low 90s.
Yeah.
So obviously, a definite change of scenery and altitude for the Packers. I know Josh Jacobs had a good Friday. He was out there doing some things.
They ran him a lot.
Right. And he was very successful. And I know that the kickers actually on Friday between Anders and Greg were 2 for 2. So they did their part to keep the competition tight at that point in time. We'll get to those guys later. Jordan was kind of ho-hum. I think it was, what do we want to say, 15-26 for something here. Let me look into my little piece here that tells me what Jordan did on Friday, but it was nothing great. Let's see. 15-26 for 102 yards, a touchdown, interception day. So Jordan was kind of, just ho-hum, but he is, and they talked about, he's kind of pressing it, trying to press some of these looks, and good. What better time to do it than when you actually have a new defensive scheme out in front of you? So, so be it. I don't put a lot of stock into that. But generally across the board, I mean, Bo Nix shined on Friday and again on Sunday. We'll talk about him. I know people mention the other guys like Kenny Clark played good on Friday, some other standout pieces, but for the most part, it was an underwhelming practice, combined joint practice for the Packers on Friday out in Denver. I think they're in a town a couple over where that takes place, but not quite sure on that.
So we kind of get that, and you're like, okay, whatever. Like they're away. It's an away practice for them. It's whatever. I think when we've had joint practices up in Green Bay, it does seem like the Packers seem to dominate their own practice field, and maybe that's the case around the league. I don't know. We will see the Ravens come this week and see if that changes or something, or maybe there's a home field advantage aspect to it. I'm not sure. But then they jump in the game, and I watched the game. I think it's up until maybe the last 4 minutes. I think I ended up turning it off, Ren, but I don't know if you made it all the way through.
I did. It was just kind of like passe getting towards the end of the game. It was going so bad, Tay, that it was just kind of like, well, I'll just watch to watch. I'm not really getting too worked up about it. Obviously, come Sunday, the Packers, Tay, they didn't dress 31 guys.
Right.
Yep. I mean, you're talking, 31 guys that are going to be 31 guys are going to be generally on your roster.
Yep.
Did not play.
People. I would say that all the starting people and their immediate backups.
And they're playing vanilla offensive scheme as everybody's talked about, and defense. They're not giving him any kind of exotic look. It's all base.
Yep.
Literally all base from both sides. Meanwhile, Denver is pulling out stuff, their first team's out there, Bo Nix. They want to get this guy obviously lathered up and get some confidence built with the team. I mean, you got Surtain out there who's, fantastic and doing his thing. And that's generally not going to lead to a win in preseason. And you're certainly looking at, a team of, we don't expect Denver to be great this year, but certainly a team of first teamers going against second and third teamers. And it clearly showed when you lose 27-2. I mean, it was not a good performance. And, Clifford had a pick on Friday at the joint practice. And then as soon as he threw that pick and he threw it kind of late over the middle in the preseason game, I'm like, ugh, God, not good for him. and they yank him. That was it. That was the rest of Clifford, and it was Pratt time there forward. And Pratt on Sunday, Tay, seemed to be throwing the ball with a lot of vigor, but also just either too much, too high, or a little behind, just not playing through the rhythm. So he was a disappointment as well. The kickers don't even get to kick. Once. You get one. Greg gets a 47-yarder, and he misses it wide right.
Bad.
It was an ugly kick. Like, ooh, that's a tough look, Greg. Obviously, the safety was neat for a guy that they just brought in the week prior. Good on him. I tweeted out, basically, woof, this is awful. Outside of, the Welch pick, it was Christian Welch, I believe.
Yep.
And then Tyron Hopper with, the 11 stops, which not all were amazing, but this is his first game action. He was flying around and he was hitting with some force. There really isn't anything to lay your hat on. I mean, it was about as ugly as a preseason game can get, which people talk about, hey, maybe it's an eye opener for them. And, there's never a bad game in the preseason from the sense that at least you can hopefully learn something. And that's all I can really say about it. That is a positive outside of, again, Hopper finally, getting some game action and being the only, if you had to give a game ball to, I guess he's the guy.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think Hopper, the interception by Welch, which was a pop-up ball. So
you got to get those, man. As soon as it went up, I'm like, somebody get that. I'm like, get it. Come on, go get it.
If it would have hit the ground, we'd be bitching even more today.
Right.
So that's great. Yeah. This game was overall, you were just like, wow, this is a boring game for the Packers. Nothing happened. They didn't do anything. So yeah, you have a lot to potentially complain about, but my initial reaction was, what did you expect when you had 31 guys out? These are the second, third, fourth people in line for playing time and on the starting roster. So that's what Matt decided to do, right? So
that was his game plan.
Matt decided to sit everybody. We're trying to figure out those last 10 or less roster spots. Maybe it's 6. Figure those out and drive home. But you can, I guess, argue the merits of that strategy, because do you worry about winning culture? Do you worry about now all the backlash that everyone's, at least in the media and populace, are saying about this game? Whoa, we got to get Ryan Tannehill in here because the quarterbacks stink. You're going to go in the season with these two guys? Like the complaints are non-ending. And as a coach, you turn that noise off, and most players do too, for the better. But did you really want that? And so after the game, I was like, yeah, that game's stunk. Whatever. It's they need to use this as a learning piece. They're getting playing time and experience for the younger guys and the guys that are trying to make this roster. So I was totally fine with it. I wasn't up in arms about it at all until I heard the collective, I think it was today, yesterday, and I think the comments after the game from Matt LaFleur. He was more upset than I thought he was going to be. And what I took from his comments was that he was upset that the level of motivation and effort was not there. Mm-hmm. And that's what he really kind of emphasized. I don't think he cares what the score is. I don't think he cares who, wins that game or not. But he wanted to see those players go out there, fight for a roster spot, have, complete motivation, and they have their engines running the whole time, and act like you want to win this game. Go out there. And I think you saw that not really happen with the offense very much. The defense kind of rebounded a little bit and did some decent things, but overall, the Packers just didn't have that oomph, and I think that's why he was upset. But then he also defended it too by saying today in his press conference that he
walked that back a lot. Yeah,
he's like, I didn't. There was no game plan. He said he didn't have a game plan, and when there is a game plan, then my expectations go up. I think he knew, and we all could see they were playing vanilla defense and vanilla offense. Basically, they were just trying to see, I think, and evaluate effort and individual performances.
Correct.
And you can say that didn't go very well for the Packers.
No, it didn't.
And I think
clearly
you could criticize Matt for making that decision. Right? You're putting yourself up against an obvious number ones with the Broncos, and what do you think is going to happen? And I know it doesn't really matter, but perception, maybe the look of it does. And I don't know how they're feeling, these players, after they kind of put up a performance like that. But I can see a little bit of both sides, but in the end, I don't mind what happened here. I think this maybe could be a good reality check for them, good experience for those players that aren't seeing the field. And Matt didn't say whether he's going to start starters this weekend. He said it's to be determined, and I completely agree with that. He needs to see something out of them today. They had practice, and then they had joint practice against the Ravens on Thursday, which is huge, I think. Very, very big to see what he's going to do, because he's the coach. He's trying to get his players experience and get the team ready for the year. And this is, I think, at the end of this preseason here, these are two big decisions for him. How much does he play the starters? And do you need that momentum going into the first game? I don't know. I guess these are the questions I want to ask you. What did you think of Matt's strategy with this game? And then what do you think his strategy should be for the Ravens coming up?
Good question, Tay. I mean, when I look back at it, I don't think it's a big deal at all. Of course, I played vanilla, but he did, obviously, we talked a little bit about that, him walking back some of those things. He said, I don't think I truly appreciated our guys. They were playing hard. They were straining. They had a bunch of mental mistakes. We didn't execute all the time, he went on to say. But basically, at the same time, talked about, hey, we had 10 hats in the frame. When you hit the pause button, there were definitely 10 bodies around the ball. Our guys are playing hard. So I think, when you get down to the brass tacks now and you have 3 games, playing one game where you're essentially playing all your backups, it gives all those guys an opportunity to play football. These guys that are undrafted free agents, these guys are unlikely to make your roster. These guys are just the very end of filling out your roster kind of guys. I think that's fair to them, and it gives you a better look to say, go out and play and let's see what these guys have. We're rolling with this really, really backup team, but there's less and less opportunity for these type of guys to get all that action. So it puts a lot on tape for them to look at from an individual effort and, play standpoint. So I don't really have a problem with it. It's kind of a throwaway, so be it. But is it a throwaway again in the sense that they get a lot of intel on those guys?
Yep.
So I think that part's good. As far as Saturday is concerned, I would definitely have more starters in the game. How long? I don't know about that. I would definitely have a mix of all my guys in that game. Obviously, comes the fourth quarter. Sure, it's going to be all the same guys you saw mostly in the Denver game, but I would have more of those 1s and 2s playing a little bit more, getting a little bit more season, because they're going to have some time off, obviously, before they head out. I think it's not a week from today, but 2 weeks from today, they're heading out on the flight, that 12-hour flight down to Brazil. So, I mean, it's around the corner, and you want to get some work in, because it's going to be a little while, and they're going to, even in that first half down in Sao Paulo, they're going to have to, shake off a little of that rust. It's going to be a challenge. And I think these guys definitely need to hit the field, and I would probably play Jordan the one series.
Yeah,
I would.
I agree with that. I think he needs to do that. And I think that was kind of the MO for a while with their quarterbacks, is play them one series, let them score, and then get them out. And I think that's probably what should happen here.
Even if they don't score, I just make sure, let's get them a series. And, it's, again, there's going to be a lot of time off, and go from there.
And I think most of this roster is set, right? We know that the spots that aren't set, that we kind of actually got good indicators for the last 2 preseason games were the safeties and the linebackers. And then you're talking about the offensive line, who
I think that's the big one, too. When you're looking at depth, it's a concern with this team. You don't see anybody that stood out as swing tackle. There's nobody can do it. Dillard can play left tackle a little bit. He can't play right tackle. And then you're looking at other guys like Telford had a really bad day. Royce Newman can't be on the team anymore. Let's be honest.
But he was playing every down.
I understand that. But, getting Monk some more time is great. Still shifting Sean Ryan is great. But when they're getting this second tier depth thing, I'm concerned about the backups a little bit, but I'm mostly concerned about that swing tackle. Because, again, you have Dillard who can play one side. But you don't have somebody who can just throw him out there. I mean, Caleb Jones hasn't looked the part. I don't know what they do there, man. I really don't. It's a bit of a, the starters are fine, I think, when you roll in the season, but beyond that, and there's going to be an injury or two.
Yep.
They're going to be tested without a doubt.
The way I look at it, which I'm okay with, is that if you get the 5 starters going, maybe you play them for like one series or two or three downs just to get them on the field together and in real game situation. Then kind of sprinkle in who you want to sprinkle in. But on Saturday against the Broncos, you have second, third guys all playing together, and collectively, that's probably not your experience levels enough to handle the complete first defense, right? So I don't take a lot of weight into like individual. Maybe if you have one of those backups with the 4 starters, does that person play better and more capable than if they were with the other completely other 2s or 3s or 4s?
True.
So I kind of look at that like that. I'm glad these guys are getting the chance. Ryan is playing center. Great. Like, let's try him out. But eventually you're going to have to get Myers back in there to get his juices flowing. I mean, you can't just keep him out all preseason and pretend that he's going to be the starter and expect him to do well. I don't know. That offensive line can be a lot of things, and they need to figure that out. And I think they're still trying to figure that out in this preseason, and that's fine. I guess that's the last thing too. It's a good transition to this last comment about this game. This is practice. This is preseason is practice. Training camp is practice. All eyes are on a team like this. They're fans like us watching this. And we get to see the practice part. We don't get to see the final product, the final performance. We see it all. So it's easy for us to get on them about practice and get on them about a bad preseason game. It's because we get to watch it. We get to watch the progress. And so I'm not worried about them losing like this. And maybe it's for the best. Maybe they can learn from this and whatever, be better for it. But I don't know. Well, we get to watch all the nuances, and we get to pick apart everything.
Exactly. Well, there are nuances, and then there's a whole game to pick apart. I mean, it is what it is. But you'd rather have them do that than win 3, by 3 scores and have some overconfidence,
right,
to know that, hey, yeah, you got Denver and they'll whip your ass. Whether or not it was your mostly your 3s. Hey, you guys can be beat. It's one roster against the other, and it doesn't matter any given Sunday or Monday or Thursday or Saturday or now Wednesdays. I mean, who knows? But the reality is, yeah, it's good to be humbled sometimes, because you need to look in the mirror and know that it takes a lot of work, and it's a 17-game season. So be prepared. It can be anybody lining up across from you, somebody you might think you could beat, or somebody that might be the best in the NFL, and it's going to be a challenge one way or the other.
I think when you look forward to this Ravens game, an opportunity that slipped through our fingers with the Broncos game was the kicking game competition. We need to see these guys kick in real experience, game time in a stadium with the pressure on to make 3 points at 46 yards or whatever it is. We need that. We didn't get that. The offense wasn't even good enough to get them close. Once it happened. And then Joseph went way, way right. That's not altitude, that kick. That was just bad holding or aiming or whatever. I just can't believe that they're in a position like this still with the kicking game. I know I've been harping on that since last year, and I honestly think it's ridiculous that we're in this situation that we're going into the season not knowing. It's a huge question mark. And you've lost how many games last year by 3 points? I just don't.
They're still in a weak position there, Tay. I mean, it was another not great day today at practice. Joseph went 2 for 5 today, Tay. Alex Hale was 3 for 5, and Carlson was 4 for 5. But I mean, there's a struggle here. These guys are basically. Hale's not going to be the guy. We know that. We expect him to get cut any time now. Joseph has now dropped below Anders on his field goal percentage. He's now at 79.1%, where Carlson is at 80.3. So, I mean, signs point to Anders being that guy, but we don't know what final cutdowns look like across the NFL. And is he your kicker?
Good night.
Yes, thank you. So. I don't know. I don't know if they have that figured out, and it is kind of a concern at this point, because yes, Anders has made some kicks, but some of them just squeak in where Greg was at least banging them there for a while. So I don't know what the front office has to feel about that. Brian's got to be a little uneasy. I would have to be honest, because again, at the same time, I think we talked about it last week. It's not like if you cut Anders Carlson and you pick up a guy, maybe that's been really good in somebody else's camp, that, there's all these suitors for Anders out there that you can't maybe stash him on your squad or go get him mid-season. So they got to do what's right for the football team. Whether or not, they feel they've invested the capital and the time in Anders. If he's just not the right guy for the job to start the season, then he's not. And move on, make the decision. Don't hesitate. That's the problem. If they hesitate with this one, it could bite them in the backside throughout the course of the season. So they got to be sure about this thing, man. And I don't know if that they're going to be.
I mean, 4 for 5 during a practice isn't necessarily bad. I didn't see those kicks, right? So the people that were there watching the kicks can have a better opinion of that.
Today.
One miss. Yes, today.
But Greg's are suddenly falling off. I mean,
So I guess I was referencing Carlson. Let's be honest. Carlson's going to be the guy. Are they going to make a huge move here? You just explained what they should be doing and what they ought to do, but they're not going to do it. I just don't think they are at all. They're going to roll with Anders because he's cheaper and he's got a longer contract.
They've got investment in him again from capital and time now. I mean, so you can see likely, and the writing's on the wall. We know it's a pretty predictable thing, but again, if there is a better guy on cutdown day, and they're going through those, that waiver, and they're looking at it, and there's a guy that's heads and tails at a better camp and looks like he's got a better leg, you just go do it. Don't be afraid to do it. Mm-hmm. So what? Just admit, admit your mistake and move on. There's nothing wrong with that, because it's the worst part again would be to get to the middle of the season, miss a few kicks that cost you playoff seeding, etc., or get to the playoffs and it's still been an up and down year and this guy costs you a game or doesn't keep you in a game, a la San Francisco.
Exactly. So that's how I feel. I feel like they're going to stick with Anderson, and we're going to be in the same boat, the exact same boat as last year, not knowing what will happen and how consistent he will be. When I'm kind of scrolling through some news here, it sounds like Edgerrin Cooper was doing some individuals work today. So he's back. That was some of the bright spot that was Hopper in this Broncos game. And if Edgerrin Cooper can come back and do some decent things, then you're talking that inside linebacker, middle linebacker. It's a
point of weakness, though. They're kind of behind the 8 ball. It's going to be
they're young.
It's going to be a slow process. Now we're talking and getting into through the first quarter into the second quarter of the season where these guys maybe start to get their legs underneath them because they've missed so much darn time, Tay. It's really McDuffie and Quay kind of rolling with the other guys. And I know McDuffie's had a great camp, and that's fantastic. But we've really where we thought they made progress with bringing in a couple guys and bringing this thing along, we've seen no dividends as a result of these injuries in training camp.
You might get the Eric Wilson making the team because they need someone that.
I think 5 do make it right there, and you just talked about Hopper and Cooper, obviously, along with the 2 from last year. But I think even Welch has a chance. Sure. More like probably a practice squatter, but certainly Wilson, based on how he ended the year. We know that fumble recovery in San Francisco was so huge. I think he's got a place based on special teams and everything else. So. I think they keep 5 and we'll get there. But it was, other than that, today, there's not a lot to come from that practice. And Romeo Doubs had a couple 30-yard pass catches from Jordan Love today. So Romeo again has just been, kind of, I think, separating himself into that, those 3 that stand out on the roster. But again, the great thing about the Packer wide receiving room is it's anybody, everybody, every week, and it's hard to cover because teams can't just, again, that's why I'm more of a fan of the way they're doing it right now than having a number 1. And like Matt told you, he just wants to vomit when he hears that last week because you want to key on one guy every week. We've seen where that gets you.
Yep.
No thanks.
One thing I saw just now, I just kind of brought it up on the screen for you to look at. The Packers released running back Javion Howard. And they signed.
I love you for it, Tay.
They signed fullback Henry Pearson back.
He's back. They like to release and bring guys back this training camp.
It's a yo-yo
Peter Bowden
type
or
season.
Henry Pearson. They're coming, they're going. We don't know which way they're headed. I don't think.
What does this tell you? Like what is this personnel? Like why even
know.
bring this guy in?
I don't know. I mean, do they really have a place for a fullback on the roster? I don't think so.
Then why why get rid of a running back for
bring
a
him
fullback?
in and have him play on have him play on Saturday. Let it be, but I don't think it means much. It's just Jarvian unfortunately had a release injury. They'll have an injury settlement there, and that'll be that. But again, another position I think they're a little weak at is right now. You get behind Josh Jacobs, and sure, Emmanuel Wilson has looked the part in preseason and training camp, but he's done that before, and then shown up in the regular season looked pretty pedestrian. And we know that AJ's got a stinger, and he was not available. They said something maybe about the altitude to play on Saturdays, or Sunday, so we didn't see him in that game. And obviously Marshawn is just still one of those few guys on, unable to practice. So I don't know. I have some concerns about depth at running back at this point in time for those reasons. And we'll see what they do come cut down day, and if there's anything else across the NFL that maybe they're interested in. Yeah,
that would be a position I would love to see them if they needed it to bring a veteran in, but because they could rely on that. I don't know. We'll see on that.
You just got to have more than one in Josh, and sure you can maybe roll down to Sao Paulo and you got Wilson and Josh, but I mean, man, you got to have another one, and will they have another one available come week 1? I mean,
Henry Pearson.
That is not your answer. With availability come week 1 on Friday night in Brazil today. I hope not.
Do all the practice squad guys get to go down there? All 17?
That's a great question, Tay. I have no idea how that works. I would say no, but at the same time, you've got a 53-man roster.
47
dress. I would think it's just going to be those guys, Tay, especially with the plane you have. I guess they got a plane that's going to be able to fly directly out of Green Bay, the right size plane to do that. So I'm not sure. That's a great question. Those are questions I'd love somebody interesting to answer for us out there. That's a cool question for sure.
So back to this week, we got the Ravens joint practice on Thursday, and then that preseason game high noon on Saturday. First, what are you going to any of those? And then secondly, what are you looking for in these next two things that are happening?
You and I had talked about going to that last one. Unfortunately, I don't think it's looking like we are, unless somehow you're going to, call me up and be like, let's do it. Maybe I'd consider it, but no, I'm not going on Saturday. I have other engagements in the family. So I have that to do, and, it is what it is there. So won't be able to take that in. How about you?
Yeah, Thursday. I gotta work for the man. Man's
the man. Yeah, I know.
So
that man.
I looked at the forecast on Saturday, and you guys can laugh at me all you want in Packer universe, but 85 and sunny.
That's a beautiful day.
August. And
work on your tan in the seats on the metal bench.
Woo! I'm second guessing wanting to go because of that. I am old now and crotchety,
you're not.
And I can't handle the heat. So
I love the heat still. I'm a fan of the heat.
I'm not. No.
Just gotta hydrate, my guy.
We'll see.
Just gotta hydrate.
Yeah. I'll be there, and I'll have to drink beer. I mean, that's dehydrating me.
Well, that's part of the problem. You gotta hydrate. Don't worry about it. I got 2 preseason ticks. I could probably get your way for pretty much nothing. So you think about that one, Tay.
So what are you looking for the Packers? What do you need to see to be? You're not uncomfortable after this loss to the Broncos, but I don't think you like it. You don't like it either.
No, nobody wants to watch their team just essentially look like garbage across every level of football. And I mean, you brought it up earlier. I didn't speak to it, but the backup QB position, we got to see a lot more out of it on Saturday. That is for certain. Absolutely. To give you any idea one of these can be a backup. Because the reality is, Tay, if they can't, and they both put on the same kind of performance, reality says also cut down day. There's some teams with too much quarterback talent that they're going to only keep 2 on the roster, just like the Packers are, that maybe they should go get somebody else.
So, we just talked about the running backs, the kickers, and potentially even middle linebackers that needs potentially a veteran to come in. Quarterback. Do you think that needs to happen?
And I know you mentioned the alarms that, the Packer universe and the Twitterverse and the podcasters and, the radio network folks, everybody brought up about this, but I think there's definitely some reality to that, because you're talking about a first and second year player, both of which have not shown out at this point that would give you any confidence in that. I mean, the amount of interceptions that Clifford's been throwing since going all the way back to minicamp through training camp, and it's not good, Tay. It's not something like others will point out, Tay, that if you lose a guy, your starting guy, Jordan Love, for 2 to 4 weeks, that you can afford to have one of those guys play, because they're not going to give you wins. They're just not. They're that bad. At this point in time, I don't think any of us would have confidence, or most of the universe have confidence, that either of those guys can get you a win over a 4-game period. I just don't. So that's where, do they really need to consider that? Is it a 5-alarm fire yet? No, but it's heating up, Tay. It's heating up big time. And again, not going to be shocked if both don't perform well on Saturday, or get to cut down day, that they're looking across the NFL and trying to get that thing figured out.
I don't know if I would be in 100% on wanting a veteran quarterback. Honestly, I'm not personally there yet. I understand what's happening with this backup quarterback situation and looking pretty terrible, a little unreliable. And if something did happen to Jordan, we'd be screwed, I think. Not screwed, but we'd have a really tough time winning. And with that said, I think the front office, Brian Gutekunst, will not bring in a veteran quarterback. I just do not see it.
He talked about going in the draft. He wanting to get back into the position of drafting and developing guys. That's great, Brian. But you could still draft and develop a guy. You just have one of them end up on your practice squad. Yeah. He's still being developed, and you'd pick one of the two you like better. That's just the simple end piece there. Because again, I think Pratt would have a little bit of interest across the league if they cut him outright. Right. Clifford wouldn't, but there's not going to be, of the other 31 teams across the NFL, a bunch of teams coming for Pratt or Clifford based on their play thus far.
Right. And I think that's a decision and, like a stake in the ground that the Packers have to decide on. Is Pratt worth keeping on the roster, or are they afraid that he'll be taken? They have to decide that for themselves, and then they can make that decision. But I just don't see them spending a bunch of money on a veteran quarterback just in case insurance policy. It's not what they've done before lately, and I just don't see it happening. So
again, if one or two play, above average to great on Saturday, then I think they're going to roll with one, and one ends up in the practice squad. But if they both play bad, I think we have a different story in our hands come Tuesday.
So we got Baltimore in town in Green Bay. They're playing at high noon on Saturday, the 24th. I just saw this, so I'll ask you this time. The point spread, Ren, where is it at?
These things are so weird.
Especially for preseason, there's no way you can even...
It's so hard, but Vegas somehow gets it pretty close. I mean, they gave Denver a 7-point spread. Right. So they were saying Denver was going to win that game, and clearly they knew what the Packers were going to be doing. Sure. As far as the Packers basically said before they going out there, kind of how they were going to approach that game with regard to starters. So I would say Matt's kind of up in the air on this one, on starters versus not starters. Who knows? I want to say Packers by 3. They get the home 3.
That's right. That's exactly it. 3 to the pack.
Nice.
That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter at all. So, I don't know. I'm looking forward to that. I will watch this one probably in real time. There's no reason not to. I'm looking forward to seeing these position battles we've kind of walked through today a little bit. Had concerns coming out of the Bronco game. So yeah, I think this is very interesting now. And before training camp got started, these were the ones that were kind of targeted by most of the media and other podcasters out there. And now it's becoming real.
It's go time.
It's becoming real.
And listen, let's all be happy as Packer fans that this camp's been pretty blasé, that there isn't much else to talk about. I mean, the safety room was fully turned over and been fantastic. Mm-hmm. I mean, Evan Williams has been more than advertised. we know obviously what Professor X brings to the table. Javon Bullard's been great. You look at the wide receiving wide receivers across the roster. You look at the tight ends. You look at the depth there and how that is for the Packers. So there isn't much, Tay, which is great. But we do have these, the O-line depth piece, the backup quarterbacks, the kickers. That stuff's important, and maybe a little bit of running back too, to kind of keep an eye on, and middle linebacker we'll sprinkle in there as well. But hey, let's again be happy that for the most part this Packer team looks pretty deep at a lot of positions with a lot of talent, a lot of young talent at that. That they're primed for a very successful 2024 season, barring injury.
Right on. Well, let's get out of here, Ren. I appreciate everyone for listening and or watching. We appreciate it. If you haven't yet, go over to YouTube, hit subscribe, like our videos, all that sort of thing. If you can, that helps us out a lot. But yeah, we'll be back. Ren will probably say a few words on this too, but we do have a special guest next week. You'll be very, very interested to listen to and watch. All I will say is it has something to do with the first game. Ren?
Yeah, this is a first time guest for us. We're really excited to have him, and I just tell everybody to stay tuned. It's going to be a good conversation. Really looking forward to it. Liked the conversation back and forth we were able to have over some DM and just very grateful for the consideration and going to join us next week. So Until Tay, episode, is it 585?
284.
Until episode 284, Tay, on the pup list.
Are you ready for some football?